This video was brought to you by MyHeritage, a Native American tribe that in the 19th century was more literate than the Europeans, a nation that fought for their lands against the Americans but helped them during World War I and World War II, a language with its own unique writing system invented by one man in just 12 years. Osiyo, my name is Julie and welcome to the Cherokee language. Cherokee is a Native American language spoken in the United States, with approximately 2,500 speakers out of 450,000 ethnic Cherokees. It's primarily spoken in Oklahoma and North Carolina, home to three federally recognized Cherokee tribes, the Cherokee Nation and the United Kituwa Band of Cherokee Indians in Oklahoma, and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians in North Carolina. Cherokee has three dialects: the now extinct lower dialect, originally spoken in South Carolina and Georgia, the Eastern dialect, spoken in North Carolina with just 200 fluent native speakers remaining, and the largest one, the Western dialect, spoken in Oklahoma. Let's explore how Cherokee arrived at this dire situation when only 0.5% of their population speak the language. As you might have guessed, this conversation will touch on terms like colonization, displacement, and forced assimilation. Most importantly, we'll discuss how Cherokees today are working to revive their language. As always, let's start with the most distant history. Cherokee belongs to the Iroquoian language family, believed to have originated in the Great Lakes area. Around 3,500 years ago, the language split into northern and southern branches. The southern branch migrated southeast, eventually becoming Cherokee, while the northern branch remained at the Great Lakes, later developing into 6 distinct languages. The Cherokees themselves consider their homeland to be Kituwa, an ancient settlement in North Carolina. It's regarded as one of the 7 mother towns and holds great significance for the Cherokee people. These dense prehistoric settlements were characterized by extensive construction of platform mounds, on top of which Cherokees used to build townhouses. Kituwa remains an important and sacred location to the Cherokees to this day. Like other tribes who inhabited this area, Cherokees were farmers and relied heavily on corn. In fact, events like the green corn ceremony, which marks the beginning of corn harvesting, are still celebrated by some tribes today. Exploring and recording your past is extremely important. When you know your roots, you better understand who you are. That's why, for this video, I've partnered with MyHeritage. MyHeritage is the leading global service for family history research and DNA testing, trusted by over 90 million users. They make building your family tree simple and fun, while helping you discover your origins and potentially 5 new relatives. Let me show you how easy it is. So, this is my family tree. And now I'm going to add a new family member. See? In just 2 seconds, I've added to my family tree. MyHeritage gives you access to 19 billion historical records, from birth certificates to newspaper articles. One of my favorite features is instant discoveries. So here I have a discovery. Oh my god, I can't believe there is information about my great-great-great-grandma. Some kind of Asian records. How do they have it? I'm surprised they even have data from Eastern Europe. Wow. And here, apparently they found 2 of my relatives who already added to their tree, so I can expand my tree with their tree. I didn't expect to find my relatives here. MyHeritage also has amazing AI technology for old photos. Watch this. You can repair, enhance, colorize, or even animate historical pictures. Ready to uncover your family story? MyHeritage is offering a 14-day free trial to my viewers. Just click the link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen to start your journey into your family's past. With the Cherokee language, as much as we want to, we can't go further in the past than the Iroquoian language family. Like most Native American languages, linguists have barely managed to link some languages into families, but it remains unclear how these families relate to each other. Of course, there's Greenberg, who grouped all Native American languages, except Nadini and Eskimo Aleut, into one Amerindian macrofamily, but his theory isn't widely accepted. For now, the Americas remain home to more language families and isolates than anywhere else, which is intriguing since it's unlikely that the last continent inhabited by humans would have more linguistic diversity than Africa, the cradle of humanity. This diversity might have been erased by recent mass expansions on other continents, in the European and Turkic in Eurasia, and Afro-Asiatic and Bantu in Africa. It's possible that prior to these migrations, Africa and Eurasia were as diverse as the Americas, where such dramatic expansions didn't occur, before the arrival of Europeans, of course. But as I always say, more research is needed. The name Cherokee is an English pronunciation of the Eastern dialects Cherokee, pronounced Cherokee in the Western dialect. This word likely comes from another language, possibly the Choctaw word Chilok, meaning cave people, or the Muskogee word Tsiloki, meaning people of a different speech. Whatever its origin, the Cherokees adapted this name, though they also called themselves Anu Kituwagi, the people of Kituwa, and Ani Yunwia, meaning the real people. We see this pattern repeatedly across cultures, a group calling themselves essentially humans, while viewing others as strange outsiders, barely even humans, speaking some weird language. In the 19th century, Cherokees made significant efforts to coexist with the newly established United States. They even adopted a constitution based on the US Constitution. However, these efforts were in vain. In 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which called for the removal of the 5 civilized tribes, Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole, to areas west of the Mississippi. Cherokees were displaced from their fertile lands in Georgia, where gold had just been discovered, quite a convenient coincidence, and were forced to make a new home in Oklahoma. This dark chapter in history is known as the Trail of Tears. Around 60,000 people were displaced, with a quarter perishing in the process. During the Civil War, the Cherokees sided with the Confederates, which ultimately didn't serve them well. After the South's defeat, the Cherokees were forced to give up even more of their lands. The wars, forced displacement, endless struggles for their territory, and new diseases brought by Europeans took a heavy toll on the Cherokee Nation, but nothing hit them harder than what came next. Throughout the 20th century, the US implemented an assimilation policy. As a result, Native American children were forcibly enrolled in boarding schools, torn from their roots and families, and forbidden to speak their language or practice their culture. The aim was to erase their native identity and Americanize them, a policy that unfortunately proved effective. It wasn't until the 70s that the US government realized the extent of cultural and linguistic wealth lost, prompting a complete reversal of the policy towards preservation. By then, of course, it was too late. Today, the Cherokee Nation is the second largest Native American tribe in the US, after the Navajo. However, the language is in a precarious state. In the early 2000s, the only fluent speakers were over 40 years old. For a language to survive, it must be used and passed on by younger generations, exactly what the Cherokee Nation is now determined to achieve. Starting in 2003, they gradually opened Cherokee schools. Now, children can study in Cherokee from kindergarten through 6th grade. The ambitious goal is that within 50 years from 2003, 80% of all tribal members will be actively re-engaged with the Cherokee language. 20 years have passed, 30 more to go, and I sincerely hope that this program proves successful, allowing the unique Cherokee language to be heard more and more. But how would you recognize Cherokee when you hear it? Let's explore that in the next section. The Cherokee writing system was created in 1821 by a man named Sequoyah. Observing Europeans using written symbols to transmit messages, he thought that this could benefit his people too. He spent 12 years inventing a writing system from scratch. Initially, he developed a hieroglyphic system, writing down thousands of symbols for each Cherokee word. Realizing the system was way too complex, he abandoned the tedious task and started all over again. Through careful observation of his mother tongue, he concluded that all Cherokee words could be formed with a limited number of syllables. To create symbols for a syllabary, Sequoyah drew inspiration from an English spelling book. Despite not knowing English, how to read the letters, or even that these were letters representing individual sounds, he adopted some shapes. As a result, some Cherokee symbols might resemble Latin letters, but their pronunciations are entirely unrelated. The final product was a syllabary of 85 symbols. Each symbol corresponds to a consonant plus vowel combination, except for 6 representing vowels alone and 1 exception standing for just the sound S. The Cherokees quickly embraced this invention. By the early 19th century, 90% of Cherokees were literate, surpassing the literacy rate of surrounding European American settlers. In 1828, the first Native American newspaper, the Cherokee Phoenix, began publishing in Cherokee. The syllabary remains an integral part of Cherokee identity and a source of pride, with Cherokees today having no intention of switching to any other writing system. Now let's delve into the phonetics. Cherokee doesn't have a particularly rich sound inventory, just 23 consonant sounds and 6 vowel sounds. Notably, Cherokee lacks labial consonants, that is, sounds pronounced with the lips, like p, f, or v. They only have the m sound, which is itself used very rarely. The language doesn't distinguish between voiced and unvoiced consonants, like g and k, but instead contrasts aspirated and unaspirated sounds, like k and k. Interestingly, in writing, some aspirated and unaspirated sounds are not distinguished. For example, the syllables ke and ke are represented by the same symbol. However, some sounds did get distinct symbols, like ka and ka or na and hna. Yeah, Cherokee has these interesting aspirated nasal sounds. There are 6 vowels in total. The 5 standard ones, a, e, o, u, plus which is the only nasalized vowel. Vowels can be long or short, but the distinction is not marked in a syllabary, so speakers must just know it. With a language having relatively few distinct sounds, you might guess what comes next. When a language needs to differentiate between all its words but it doesn't have many sounds, it often develops tones. Cherokee has 6 different tones, 2 level tones, high and low, and 4 contour tones, rising, falling, low fall, and very high. Both short and long vowels can have level tones, but only long vowels can have contour tones. And guess what? Tones are not marked in the syllabary either. The stress typically falls on the last syllable, with the stressed vowel automatically receiving a high tone, or a rising tone if the vowel is long. In spoken Cherokee, the last vowel is typically dropped, so the vowel that receives the stress and the high tone is actually the second to last, but it is pronounced as the last. For example, utitlek. The last symbol is the syllable ka, but only the sound k is pronounced. Short low tone vowels may get dropped even in the middle of a word, akilakt. The last syllables just merged into something like kt. I've avoided pronouncing too many Cherokee words to prevent butchering them. It's better to listen to native speakers for accurate pronunciation.
Từ đó đứa nhau ghé đó khó thể khó lấy rồi gì kia ha vừa qua cái nó rồi sư thật nữa rồi gì kia
in cái anh cái đó usti ý cái
cái lưỡi là tao cái sợi cái
đó stak chơi cái thằng kia cao lên cao uni one nó thì đại ông cái mong này cái nó là two t tại yêu lâu sao tao nát sti như stai cái cao lên sti uni one cái tiếng này nhau
una ye his cái hồi đó nó là có cái đó thì cái hồi đó ai thì cái thì chơi cái anh ấy cái nó từ đó có hi cái sẽ chỉ yếu là cái sẽ nè có chỗ chỉ muốn này cái cho là Kohia Diklaskinews, Dini Yorla Yani Warning.
What do you think about the sound of Cherokee? It's the third US Native American language I'm exploring on this channel, and even though they all belong to completely different families, I do hear some similarities, like the sounds hl or the small number of voiced consonants or even tones. Do check out the Languages of the Americas playlist. Each of those languages is quite fascinating. If you want to vote on the next language, check out my Patreon, where you can vote too. Thank you to my top tier patrons who picked Cherokee. Now let's move on to grammar. After looking at a couple of North American languages, I've started noticing similarities in their grammar too. This by no means suggests these languages are related, but they have existed in neighboring territories for hundreds or even thousands of years, so naturally they communicated and adopted each other's features. As in many Native American languages, in Cherokee the verb is king. Cherokee is a polysynthetic language, which is the opposite of English. In English, to add meaning to a simple word, you need to say more simple words. In Cherokee, one word can be a complete sentence, and this word will usually be a verb. Prefixes indicate the participants involved, while suffixes indicate the tense, aspect, and mood of the verb. Here's an example of a word that in English translates as the phrase, "you all kick it." You see how all the information, the subject, the object, is packed into this one verb. In Cherokee, there are more ways to differentiate person and number than in English. For instance, instead of distinguishing between male and female, Cherokee makes a difference between animate and inanimate. For example, a similar phrase, "you all kick him," will have a different prefix. Cherokee also has inclusive and exclusive first person, as well as three numbers, singular, plural, and dual. Cherokee can also be very subtle in specifying the action, the exact nature of the action, when it occurred, whether the speaker witnessed the action, and many more details. All of this information is expressed grammatically with different prefixes and suffixes. Because of its polysynthetic nature, Cherokee word order is free and context dependent. Usually, the first elements in a sentence convey the newest or most important information, the emphasis of the phrase. This logic is also known as pragmatic word order. Cherokee also makes use of clitics, particles that attach to the end of a word to add meaning. For example, a clitic s marks a yes-no question. What may be counterintuitive to some is that this clitic doesn't necessarily go at the end of a phrase. In the example, "Did you buy the dog?" the s actually attaches to the first word, the noun dog. Clitics come in great number and nuance. For example, there's another clitic, chu, used to express a yes-no question again, but one to which a yes answer is expected. Since verbs are so important in Cherokee grammar, it's not surprising that Cherokee nouns mostly derive from verbs. You can imagine that using this pattern, it's easy not only to construct nouns from verbs, but also to build new words altogether. And you can also imagine that instead of importing loanwords, Cherokee has been doing just that, inventing new words for new concepts they encounter. For example, policeman literally means he catches them finally and conclusively. Talking about conclusions, Cherokee is a complex and fascinating language. It's not like anything else out there. Its closest relatives from the Iroquoian language family split 3,500 years ago. Relations to other languages have not been proven, and compared to other languages of the world, the logic of the Cherokee language feels like it's from another planet. It's so distinct that during World War I and World War II, Cherokee speakers, along with speakers of other Native American languages, were used to transmit coded messages as code talkers. No one ever broke the code. What sets Cherokee apart is definitely its unique writing system, as well as the fierce determination of current Cherokee tribe members to revive the language. Let's all meet at the same place in 30 years and see if they will have managed to replace English with Cherokee for everyday use. If you want to find out more about your roots, don't forget to check out my heritage, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in our next exploration.